We're selling the house? The words hit me like a slap across the face. I'd been expecting maybe a discussion about Dad's retirement plans or Mum's latest complaints about the neighbours. Not this. My name is Genesis, and I should probably mention that I've spent 28 years being the family afterthought. While my sister Scarlett collected trophies and praised like they were going out of style, I was the one quietly keeping my head down, working 2 jobs just to scrape by. What do you mean, selling? I managed to ask, my coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips. Mum didn't even look up from her paperwork spread across the dining table. Harold, show her the contract. Dad slid a thick folder across the polished wood surface, that smug smile already creeping across his face. Closed yesterday. Got a fantastic price, too. But where are we supposed to... We? Scarlett's laugh cut through my question like glass. She was perched on the arm of Dad's chair, perfectly manicured nails drumming against his shoulder. Oh, honey, there's no we in this equation. The room started spinning. This was the house I grew up in, the house where I'd carved my initials into the basement doorframe when I was 7, where I'd spent countless nights in my tiny bedroom listening to Scarlett get praised for her latest achievement while I studied for exams that no one would ever ask about. The money's going towards Scarlett's new place, Mom said, finally looking up with that practiced expression of mild irritation she reserved specifically for me. She found this gorgeous 5-bedroom in Sunset Ridge, pool, 3-car garage, the works. 5 bedrooms? The words came out as a whisper. Leo and I are thinking about starting a family soon, Scarlett said, examining her nails. We'll need the space. Leo, her fiancé of exactly 3 months, who worked in his daddy's law firm and had never heard the word no in his privileged life. But what about me? I asked. Where am I supposed to go? The silence that followed was deafening. Dad cleared his throat and shuffled through some papers. Mum went back to her documents. Scarlett just stared at me like I'd asked the stupidest question in the world. Genesis, you're 28 years old, Mum said without looking up. You have 2 jobs. Surely you can figure something out. 2 jobs that barely cover my student loans and car payment, I shot back. You know I can't afford... Don't be so dramatic, Dad interrupted. We're not throwing you out on the street. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. What do you mean? Scarlett was grinning now, that predatory smile she'd perfected in high school. Tell her about the shed, Daddy. The shed? I looked between them, confusion mixing with growing dread. Dad pulled out another document, this one much thinner. Your grandfather's old garden shed is still technically on a separate parcel. Has been since the property was subdivided back in the 70s. We thought, for sentimental reasons, you might like to have it. The shed, I repeated slowly. You want me to live in the garden shed? It's got electricity, Mum added helpfully. And there's a spigot for water right outside. The shed. The rotting, mouse-infested, 8 by 10-foot structure that hadn't been used for anything but storing broken lawnmowers for the past decade. The shed, with holes in the roof and a door that didn't close properly. You're joking? $1, Dad said, sliding the deed across the table. That's all we're asking. Very generous, considering the sentimental value. Scarlett was practically vibrating with glee. It'll be like camping. You always said you liked the outdoors. I stared at the deed, at my name typed in official font next to a legal description of 0.12 acres of what was essentially a glorified storage closet. This is insane, I whispered. This is reality, Mum said sharply. Scarlett has always been the responsible one. She's getting married, building a life, contributing to society. You're still waiting tables and writing little articles for websites no one reads. The words hit their mark perfectly. Mum had always been a master at finding the exact spot that would hurt the most. But as I sat there, staring at that deed, something else stirred beneath the humiliation. A memory of Grandpa complaining about zoning laws and property lines, about how the city had messed up the paperwork when they'd subdivided the lot. "Fine," I said, reaching for a pen. "I'll take it." I signed my name with steady hands, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. Folded the deed carefully and slipped it into my purse. "Smart girl," Dad said, but his approval felt like poison. As I walked out of that house for what I didn't know would be the last time as a family member, I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just made a very expensive mistake. The shed might be a joke to them, but I remembered what Grandpa used to say about that little parcel of land, something about access rights and independent zoning, something that might just change everything. The mouse was staring at me. I'd been living in the shed for exactly 3 days, and this little grey bastard had claimed the corner where I'd stacked my boxes. He sat there on my winter clothes, whiskers twitching like he was judging my life choices. "Yeah, well, join the club," I muttered, pulling my sleeping bag tighter around my shoulders. The roof had leaked again during last night's storm. My laptop was thankfully safe, but my favourite sweater now had a brown water stain that looked suspiciously like a middle finger. Even the universe was mocking me. My phone buzzed, a text from Scarlett. "How's the palace?" I was about to throw the phone across the shed when it rang. Sam's name lit up the screen. "Please, tell me you're calling to offer me your couch," I said by way of greeting. "Jen? Jesus, you sound terrible. What's going on?" Sam had been my lab partner in high school chemistry, back when we were both convinced we'd be marine biologists. He'd ended up in real estate development instead, and I'd ended up, well, here. Remember how I told you my family was a little dysfunctional? The sister who got the car for graduation while you got a gift card to Target? That was just the warm-up act. I filled him in on the house sale, the shed, the whole humiliating mess. By the time I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "They gave you a deed?" "For a shed, Sam. A literal garden shed with a family of mice." "Can you send me a photo of that deed?" I blinked. "Why?" "Just humour me. I'm coming over." An hour later, Sam was crouched in my 8x10 palace, his expensive suit completely out of place among the cobwebs and mouse droppings. He'd brought coffee and donuts, which made him officially my favourite person on the planet. "This is unbelievable," he said, studying the deed with his phone's flashlight. "Tell me about it. I'm 28 years old and living in a shed." "No, Jen, I mean this is actually unbelievable." He looked up at me, eyes wide. "Do you know what you have here? A tetanus shot waiting to happen? You have an independent parcel with its own access rights. Look at this legal description. This isn't just a shed on your parents' property. This is your property." I stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means you can do whatever you want with it. Build, renovate, sell." He grinned. "Develop." "Develop? Sam, it's 1,200 square feet of dirt with a rotting shed on it. 1,200 square feet in one of the most desirable neighbourhoods in the city. Do you know what land goes for around here?" I didn't, but the way his eyes were lighting up was starting to make me nervous. "The zoning is residential, single family. You could tear this down and build a house." "With what money? I can barely afford ramen." "That's where it gets interesting." Sam pulled out his tablet and started sketching. "Small footprint, but you could go up. 2 stories, maybe 3 if we can swing the permits. Modern design, clean lines." "Sam, I can't afford..." "I can front the construction costs. Call it an investment. We split the profits when you sell." "When I sell? I just got here." "Or," he paused, stylus hovering over the screen, "you could keep it, live in it, right here, right next to your family's new mansion." Something in his tone made me look up sharply. "What aren't you telling me?" I drove past their new place on the way here. Sunset Ridge, right? Beautiful neighborhood. Gorgeous views of the valley, especially from those back decks. And your little parcel sits right between their house and the sunset. The words hung in the air between us. I could practically see the gears turning in his head, and slowly they started turning in mine too. You're saying I could block their view. I'm saying you could build whatever you want on your own property. If that happens to affect their view, well, he shrugged. Property rights are property rights. I thought about Scarlett's laugh when she'd called this place a palace, about Mum's dismissive wave when I'd asked where I was supposed to go, about Dad's smug smile when he'd slid that deed across the table like he was doing me a favour. How tall could we build? Sam's grin was answer enough. Let me make some calls. After he left, I sat in my sleeping bag, staring at the deed in the dim light filtering through the holes in the roof. The mouse had returned to his corner, but he didn't seem quite so judgmental anymore. Maybe we were both just trying to make the best of what we'd been given. My phone buzzed again, another text from Scarlett. Mum wants to know if you need anything. We're having a housewarming party next weekend. I typed back. Just working on some home improvements. Can't wait to see the new place. Let them think I was broken. Let them think I was defeated. They had no idea what they'd just handed me. The moving trucks were like a parade of my family's success. I watched from my shed window as uniformed men carried box after box into Scarlett's new mansion. Crystal chandeliers, leather furniture, artwork that probably cost more than my annual salary. The house itself was obscene. All glass and stone and perfectly manicured landscaping. Genesis! Mum's voice cut across the yard. Come help your sister. I trudged over, playing my part. Defeated little sister, grateful for scraps. Oh, good. You're here, Scarlett said, not looking up from directing traffic. Can you grab that box of kitchen stuff? Be careful, it's the good china. The box was heavier than it looked. I stumbled slightly and Scarlett rolled her eyes. Maybe just set it down gently. Some of us can't afford to replace Grandma's dishes. Leo appeared at her elbow, looking uncomfortable. I can get that, Genesis. She's got it, Scarlett said quickly. Don't you, Jen? I nodded, swallowing the words I really wanted to say. Instead, I carried the box inside and got my first real look at their new palace. The entryway alone was bigger than my shed. Marble floors, a staircase that curved like something out of a movie, windows everywhere. But it was the back of the house that made me stop breathing. Floor-to-ceiling glass doors opened onto a deck that stretched the entire width of the house. Beyond that, the valley spread out like a postcard, rolling hills dotted with trees, and in the distance, the mountains where the sun would set in a few hours. Incredible, isn't it? Dad appeared beside me, chest puffed with pride. Cost a fortune, but look at that view. You can't put a price on something like that. It's beautiful, I said honestly. Scarlett's going to love having her morning coffee out there, and the sunsets. He shook his head. Pure magic. I nodded, already visualizing exactly where my house would sit. Right there, between this deck and those mountains. Genesis! Scarlett's voice echoed from the kitchen. Can you help me unpack? I want everything perfect for the party. The next few hours were torture. I smiled and nodded while Scarlett showed off every expensive detail. The wine fridge, the marble countertops, the master bathroom with a tub big enough for 3 people. And this is going to be the nursery, she said, opening the door to a room that was already bigger than most apartments. When Leo and I start our family? It's perfect, I managed. By evening, neighbours had started arriving for the impromptu housewarming. I recognised a few faces from the old neighbourhood, but most were new, the kind of people who belonged in a place like Sunset Ridge. You must be the sister, a woman with perfectly blown-out hair said, extending her hand. I'm Olive. I live 3 houses down. Genesis. Scarlett's told us so much about you. How brave of you to, well, make your own way. The pity in her voice made my skin crawl. I'm doing fine. Of course you are. And that little shed is so rustic, very bohemian. I excused myself and slipped out to the deck. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It really was spectacular. Pretty amazing, right? I turned to find Leo beside me, holding 2 beers. It's gorgeous, I said, accepting the bottle. Scarlett's already planning to have our wedding photos taken out here. Says the light is perfect around 6:30. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the colours shift across the sky. Can I ask you something? Leo said quietly. Sure. Are you really okay? With all this, it seems what? He hesitated. Unfair. I looked at him more carefully. Maybe there was more to Leo than I'd given him credit for. Life's not fair, I said, but sometimes you get lucky. Lucky? I smiled, thinking about the architect's rendering Sam had shown me that afternoon. Clean lines, modern angles, 3 stories of glass and steel that would rise like a middle finger between this deck and the sunset. Sometimes, what looks like the worst thing that ever happened to you turns out to be exactly what you needed. Leo frowned, but before he could ask what I meant, Scarlett appeared in the doorway. There you are! Leo, come meet the Hendersons. They have that gorgeous pool we talked about. As Leo was dragged away, I stayed on the deck, watching the sun sink lower. In a few months, this view would be very different. The thought made me smile for the first time in weeks. My phone buzzed, a text from Sam. Permits approved. Construction starts Monday. I typed back, perfect timing. The sun disappeared behind the mountains, and I headed back to my shed. Tomorrow, I'd start playing the part of the grateful, defeated sister. But tonight, I had plans to make. The mouse was waiting for me when I got back, sitting on my pillow like he owned the place. Enjoy it while you can, buddy, I told him. We're both moving up in the world. The city planning office smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. I sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, clutching my folder of documents while the clerk behind the counter moved with the speed of molasses. My permit application had been under review for 2 weeks, and I was starting to panic. Genesis, Wilkins? A tall man in a rumpled shirt approached, reading from a clipboard. His badge read Sullivan Ford Building Inspector. That's me. Let's talk about your project. He gestured toward a small conference room. I've got to be honest, this is one of the more interesting applications I've seen. My stomach dropped. Is there a problem? Not a problem exactly, but building a 3-story modern home on a 1,200 square foot lot, directly adjacent to your family's property. He raised an eyebrow. That's going to create some headaches. It's my land. I have the deed. Oh, the paperwork's all in order. Your grandfather's subdivision from the 70s was actually pretty clever. Separate parcel, independent access via that old service road. Legally, you're golden. Then, what's the issue? Sullivan leaned back in his chair. The issue is that your neighbours are going to hate you, especially the ones who just paid top dollar for unobstructed valley views. I kept my expression neutral. I can't control what other people think. Fair enough. Just want to make sure you know what you're getting into. He stamped my permit application. Construction approved. Try not to start any wars. I practically floated out of the building. By the time I got back to the shed, Sam was already there with coffee and a grin. We're official, I said, waving the permits. Excellent. I've got the crew lined up. We can break ground Monday. That fast? Small lot, simple foundation. The beauty of this design is efficiency. He pulled out his tablet, showing me the updated plans. 3 stories, but narrow. maximizes height while staying within setback requirements. I stared at the rendering. It was beautiful, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, and it would sit like a wall between Scarlett's deck and the sunset. How long until it's finished? 8 weeks, maybe 10 if we hit weather delays. My phone rang. Mum's name flashed on the screen. Genesis, what's all this nonsense about construction permits? My blood went cold. What do you mean? Olive called Scarlett. She heard rumours at the grocery store about building permits filed for your address. I forced my voice to stay steady. I'm just making some improvements to the shed. What kind of improvements? Nothing major. Maybe adding a bathroom, fixing the roof. Sam was watching me, eyebrows raised. Well, just don't do anything stupid, Mum said, and don't expect us to pay for it. Wouldn't dream of it. After I hung up, Sam shook his head. You're playing with fire. I'm playing with permits and property rights. Your sister's going to figure it out eventually. Let her. By then, it'll be too late. The next morning, I was at my waitressing job when Scarlett walked in. She never came to the diner where I worked, too beneath her usual standards. We need to talk, she said, sliding into a booth. I grabbed a coffee pot and walked over. What can I get you? Cut the act, Genesis. I know you're up to something. I'm working. You want coffee or not? She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Olive says there's been surveying equipment near your shed. City trucks. What are you planning? Just some renovations, like I told Mum. Renovations don't require city surveyors. I poured her coffee without being asked. Maybe you should mind your own business. My business? Her voice rose slightly. You're living in a shed on the edge of my property. Everything you do affects my property values. Your property is 300 feet away. Don't play dumb. We both know that shed sits right. She stopped, eyes widening. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? You're going to try to block our view. I set the coffee pot down carefully. I'm going to improve my property. What happens to your view is between you and physics. Scarlett's face went white, then red. You can't do this. Actually, I can. It's called property rights. Dad taught me all about them when he explained why I couldn't live in the house I grew up in. This is insane. You're going to destroy your relationship with our entire family over some petty revenge? I'm going to build a house on my land. If that bothers you, maybe you should have thought about that before you laughed at me for living in a shed. She stood up abruptly, knocking over the coffee cup. Brown liquid spread across the table and dripped onto the floor. This isn't over, she said. No, I agreed, grabbing a towel to clean up the mess. It's just getting started. That afternoon, Sam called with an update. Demolition crew's ready. We start tearing down the shed tomorrow. Perfect. You sure about this, Jen? Once we start, there's no going back. I looked out the shed window at Scarlett's mansion, at the deck where she'd probably be having her morning coffee in a few hours. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. All right then, hope you're ready for the fireworks. I was. The bulldozer arrived at 7 a.m. sharp. I was sipping coffee from a thermos, sitting on a folding chair I'd borrowed from Sam, watching the crew set up their equipment. The demolition foreman, a guy named Rick with arms like tree trunks, walked over with a clipboard. You're sure about this, right? Once we knock it down, that's it. Knock it down. The first swing of the wrecking ball sent the shed's roof flying. Splinters and dust filled the air, and I couldn't help but smile. 28 years of being treated like I didn't matter, and now I was literally tearing down their assumptions. What the hell is going on? Scarlett's voice cut through the noise of machinery. She was running across the yard in her silk pajamas and fuzzy slippers, hair wild, face twisted with panic. Morning, sis, I called out cheerfully. Stop! Stop right now! She was screaming at the bulldozer operator, waving her arms like she was directing traffic. Rick looked at me questioningly. I shook my head. Keep going. You can't do this. Scarlett spun toward me. This is our property. Actually, it's my property. I pulled out the deed and waved it at her. Remember? You were there when Dad gave it to me. Mum came running out of the house next, Dad close behind. Both of them looked like they'd seen a ghost. Genesis, what is the meaning of this? Mum's voice had that sharp edge that used to make me shrink when I was little. I'm building a house. A house? Dad's face was turning purple. On that tiny lot? It's not that tiny. 1,200 square feet is plenty for the right design. The bulldozer took another swing and the shed's walls crumbled. Scarlett actually screamed, "You're destroying our view!" I'm building on my land. This is insane! Scarlett turned to the construction crew. I'll pay you double to stop. Rick looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Lady, we've got a contract and permits. We're not stopping. I'll call the police. Go ahead, I said. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your attempt to interfere with legal construction. Dad stepped forward, trying his intimidation routine. Genesis, you stop this nonsense right now. We can work something out. Work something out? Like when you worked out giving me a shed while Scarlett got a mansion. That's different. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're only interested in working things out when it affects what you want. Mum tried a different approach. Honey, be reasonable. Think about property values. Think about the neighbourhood. I am thinking about the neighbourhood. I'm improving it with quality construction. Sam's truck pulled up and he hopped out with a roll of blueprints under his arm. Morning, everyone, he said pleasantly. Beautiful day for construction. Sam? Dad recognised him from high school. You're involved in this? I'm the developer. Genesis is my client. This is a mistake, Scarlett said, her voice getting shrill. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. Sam unrolled the blueprints on the hood of his truck. Want to see what we're building? The family crowded around despite themselves. I watched their faces as they took in the design. 3 stories of modern architecture that would rise like a monument to their own cruelty. It's going to be gorgeous, Sam said. Floor-to-ceiling windows, rooftop terrace, sustainable materials. Really going to class up the neighbourhood. It's going to block our entire view, Scarlett whispered. That's unfortunate, I said, but I'm sure you'll find other things to look at. We'll sue, Dad said suddenly. We'll get an injunction. On what grounds? Sam asked. She owns the land, has proper permits, and the design meets all zoning requirements. Spite, Mum said. She's doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because I need a place to live. The fact that it affects your view is just a happy coincidence. Leo appeared at the edge of the yard, looking confused and still in his workout clothes. What's all the shouting about? Genesis is building a house, Scarlett said, her voice cracking. Right there, it's going to destroy everything. Leo looked at the blueprints, then at the construction site, then at me. This is your land? Legally deeded to me by your future father-in-law. For $1, Dad said defensively. $1 for land that's apparently worth enough to build a house on, Leo said slowly. That seems what? Scarlett snapped. Leo looked uncomfortable. Nothing, just seems like maybe we should have thought this through. We? Scarlett's voice went up an octave. We didn't do anything wrong. The bulldozer finished with the shed, leaving nothing but a pile of rubble, and a clear view of exactly where my house would sit. Right between their deck and the mountains. Foundation crew will be here tomorrow, Sam announced. We should have the frame up by next week. This isn't over, Scarlett said, but her voice had lost its edge. She sounded defeated. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. As my family retreated to their mansion, I stayed to watch the crew clear the debris. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe properly. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard about your construction project. Some of us think it's about time someone stood up to the Sunset Ridge snobs. Your neighbour, 2 streets over. I smiled and typed back, "Thanks for the support." Maybe I wasn't as alone in this as I'd thought. The petition had 43 signatures. Olive stood on my construction site at 8 in the morning, waving the papers like a battle flag. Behind her, a small crowd of neighbours had gathered, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "This is a formal complaint to the City Planning Commission," she announced. 43 homeowners demanding an immediate halt to this monstrosity. I was sitting in my car, eating a breakfast sandwich before my shift at the diner. The foundation had been poured yesterday, and the concrete was still curing under plastic sheeting. "Morning, Olive," I said, rolling down my window. "Nice turnout." "Don't you dare act casual about this. You're destroying our entire neighbourhood." "I'm building a house." "You're building a spite fence, a 3-story middle finger aimed at your own family." One of the neighbours, an older man I didn't recognise, stepped forward. "Look, Genesis, we're not trying to be unreasonable here, but property values will probably go up," I interrupted. "Quality construction, modern design, sustainable materials. Sam says it will be the nicest house in a 5-block radius." "It's going to block the Hendersons' view too," Olive said, "and the Patels. This affects more than just your sister." "Then maybe they should have bought lots with guaranteed view easements." My phone rang, Sam's name on the screen. "I'm dealing with the angry mob," I told him. "What's up?" "We've got a problem. The city's calling for a hearing on the petition next Tuesday." My stomach dropped. "Can they stop us?" "Not legally, but they can make our lives hell with inspections and delays." I looked at the crowd of neighbours, at Olive's smug expression, at the foundation that represented everything I'd worked for. "I'll be there Tuesday." After I hung up, Olive was practically glowing. "Hearing's been called, hasn't it? The city's going to shut you down." "We'll see." "This is what happens when you let spite drive your decisions," she said. "Actions have consequences." "Yeah," I said, starting my car. "They do." The hearing was a nightmare. The community centre was packed. Scarlett sat in the front row with Mum and Dad, all of them dressed like they were going to church. Behind them, at least 30 neighbours filled the folding chairs. I sat alone at the back with Sam and a folder full of legal documents. City Councilwoman Martinez called the meeting to order. "We're here to discuss the petition regarding construction at 1247 Maple Ridge Lane. Ms. Ortiz, you filed the complaint?" Olive stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm here representing concerned homeowners who believe this construction project violates the spirit of our community standards." "The spirit?" Sam muttered beside me. "This isn't about legal technicalities," Olive continued. "It's about a young woman so consumed with family resentment that she's willing to destroy an entire neighbourhood's property values for revenge." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The proposed structure is completely out of character with our area. 3 stories on a lot that size? It's going to loom over everyone, blocking views that people paid premium prices to enjoy. "Ms. Wilkins," Councilwoman Martinez said, "would you like to respond?" I stood up, my legs shaky. "I own the land legally. I have proper permits. The design meets all zoning requirements. I don't understand what we're here to discuss." "We're here to discuss community standards," said a man I recognised from Scarlett's housewarming party. "Neighbourly consideration, basic human decency." Where was basic human decency when my family sold the house I grew up in and offered me a shed? The room went quiet. Where was neighbourly consideration when my sister laughed at me for being homeless? when my parents called me dramatic for asking where I was supposed to live. Scarlett's face was bright red. She was staring at her hands. I'm building a house on land that was legally deeded to me. If that affects your views, maybe you should take it up with the people who created this situation. This is exactly what we're talking about, Olive said. Pure spite. You want to talk about spite? I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. Let me play you something. Leo had sent me the audio file 3 days ago. I'd been saving it for the right moment. Scarlett's voice filled the room, crystal clear. She's pathetic, honestly, living in that shed like some kind of vagrant. I almost feel sorry for her, but then I remember how she's always been jealous of everything I have. This is probably the best thing that ever happened to her, finally having something to complain about. The silence was deafening. That was recorded at your housewarming party, I said, while I was helping you unpack your dishes. Scarlett looked like she wanted to disappear. Ms. Wilkins, Councilwoman Martinez said carefully, while we sympathise with your family situation, that doesn't change the community impact. The community impact of legal construction on private property? Sam stood up. If I may, Councilwoman, we've followed every regulation, obtained every permit, and designed a structure that exceeds current building standards. If the city wants to start blocking legal construction based on neighbours' feelings, that's a very dangerous precedent. The councilwoman looked uncomfortable. The hearing is adjourned. We'll review the petition and issue a decision within 10 days. As people filed out, Leo approached me. Genesis, I'm sorry. I didn't know she said those things. But you recorded them. He nodded. I've been recording a lot of things lately. Scarlett doesn't know. Why? Because I'm starting to see who she really is, and I don't like what I see. I looked across the room at Scarlett, who was surrounded by sympathetic neighbours. What are you going to do about it? Leo was quiet for a long moment. I don't know yet, but something. 3 days later, the city ruled in my favour. Construction resumed immediately, but the victory felt hollow. Half the neighbourhood hated me, my family wasn't speaking to me, and I was burning through my savings faster than I'd planned. Sam found me sitting on the foundation, staring at the framing that was starting to rise. Having second thoughts? Every day. Want to stop? I looked towards Scarlett's house, where she was probably having her morning coffee on the deck, watching her view disappear one board at a time. Not a chance. The house was finished on a Tuesday. I stood on my new rooftop terrace, watching the sun set behind the mountains for the first time from my own property. The view was spectacular, rolling hills, distant peaks, and not a single obstruction in sight. From Scarlett's deck, though, all they could see was my house. It's perfect, Sam said, joining me with 2 beers. Even better than the renderings. He was right. 3 stories of glass and steel, clean lines, modern fixtures. The kind of house that belonged in architectural magazines. The kind of house that made a statement. The housewarming party's tomorrow night, I said. You sure people will come? Are you kidding? Half the city's been following this drama. Everyone wants to see the house that started a war. My phone buzzed. A text from Leo. Can we talk? It's important. I showed Sam the message. Think it's about the wedding? He asked. What wedding? Check social media. I opened Instagram. Scarlett's latest post was from this morning. A photo of her engagement ring with the caption, "Wedding planning in full swing. Can't wait to celebrate our love with family and friends in our beautiful backyard. Just blessed Bashan sunset, views Iwashurgash family first." The comments were brutal. Half were congratulations, half were people asking about the house situation and whether I'd be invited. She's really going to have her wedding reception on that deck? Sam asked. It looks like it. With your house blocking the sunset? That's her choice. 20 minutes later, Leo knocked on my front door. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. Nice place, he said, looking around the open-concept living room. Thanks. Want a tour? Actually, I want to show you something. He pulled out his phone and opened a voice recording app. This is from last night. Scarlett doesn't know I recorded it. He hit play. Scarlett's voice filled the room. I don't care what it costs, Daddy. Hire a lawyer, bribe the city inspector, burn the house down for all I care. I am not having my wedding photos ruined by that eyesore. Dad's voice. Sweetheart, we've tried everything legal. Then try something illegal. She's destroying my life. Mum's voice. Maybe we could offer her money to move. I'm not giving that bitch a penny. She did this to hurt me, and now she's going to pay. Leo stopped the recording. There's more, he said. Hours of it. Her talking about sabotaging your construction, spreading rumours about you around town, trying to get you fired from your jobs. I sat down heavily on my new couch. Why are you telling me this? Because I can't marry someone like that. Leo, I've been recording her for weeks, Genesis, ever since the construction started. I thought maybe she was just stressed, that she'd calm down once she got used to the idea. He shook his head. But it's gotten worse. The things she says about you, about your parents, about me when she thinks I'm not listening. What are you going to do? I'm going to end it, tomorrow at your housewarming party. You're coming to my party? If you'll have me, I want to make a statement. The next evening, my house was packed. Sam had been right. Everyone wanted to see the infamous Spite House. Neighbours I'd never met, co-workers from both my jobs, even some people who'd just heard about the story online. The crowd spilled from the living room onto the deck, up to the rooftop terrace. Everyone was taking photos, posting to social media, marvelling at the view. This is incredible, said Maria from the diner. You can see the whole valley. And look at that sunset, added Jake, one of Sam's construction crew. Perfect timing. Through my floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Scarlett's house. The deck was empty, except for her, Mom, and Dad, all of them staring up at my terrace where the party was in full swing. Genesis! Leo's voice cut through the chatter. He was standing in my doorway, still in his work suit. Can I have everyone's attention? The room went quiet. I want to thank Genesis for inviting me tonight. And I want to apologise publicly for my family's behaviour over the past few months. Your family? Someone asked. My fiancé's family, soon to be ex-fiancé. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I've spent the last 2 months watching someone I thought I loved reveal her true character. The cruelty, the manipulation, the complete lack of empathy for her own sister. He looked directly at me. Genesis didn't build this house out of spite. She built it out of necessity because her family threw her away like garbage. My throat tightened. Scarlett! Leo called out, loud enough for his voice to carry across the yard. If you can hear me, we're done. The wedding's off. He pulled off his engagement ring and set it on my kitchen counter. I'll be by tomorrow to get my things. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers and excited chatter. Through the window, I saw Scarlett collapse into one of her deck chairs, Mom rushing to her side. Leo walked over to me. I'm sorry it took me so long to see who she really was. Thank you, I managed. As the sun set behind the mountains, casting golden light through my windows, I realised something had shifted. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about finally being free. The knock on my door came at sunrise. I was making coffee in my gleaming new kitchen, still getting used to having actual counter space, when I heard the tentative tapping. Through the peephole, I saw Scarlett standing on my porch, mascara streaked down her cheeks, still wearing yesterday's clothes. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Genesis, please. We need to talk." "Do we?" She looked past me into the house, taking in the open floor plan, the modern fixtures, the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "Thank you." I came to apologize. I leaned against the doorframe. "For which part? Laughing when I was homeless? Calling me pathetic at your housewarming? Or trying to sabotage my construction?" Her face crumpled. "Leo played me the recordings, all of them. And I heard myself, really heard myself." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "I sound like a monster. You sound like yourself. That's what makes it so awful." We stood in silence for a moment. From my rooftop terrace, I could hear Sam setting up chairs for the morning coffee he'd promised to bring over. "The wedding's really off?" I asked. "He won't even talk to me. Moved out this morning while I was having a breakdown on the deck." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" I considered the question honestly. "I'm sorry you're in pain. I'm not sorry he saw who you really are." Scarlett nodded slowly. "Mom and Dad want to sell the house." "What?" "They can't stand looking at yours every day. Dad says it's like living next to a constant reminder of their failure as parents." "Their failure?" His words, not mine. She looked up at my house again. "They're talking about moving to Florida, starting over. What about you?" "I don't know. I can't afford the house payments without Leo. And I can't..." She gestured helplessly at my terrace. "I can't live in the shadow of what I did to you." My coffee maker beeped behind me. The sound of normal life, of mornings that belonged to me. "Genesis?" Scarlett's voice was small. "Do you think you could ever forgive me?" I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. The golden child who'd had everything handed to her, who'd never learned that actions have consequences, who was finally facing the wreckage of her own choices. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm willing to try." Her eyes filled with tears. "Really?" "On one condition." "Anything. You get therapy, real therapy, not just talking to Mum about how unfair life is. You figure out why you thought it was okay to treat me like garbage for 28 years. I will. I promise. And you apologize to Leo. Not to get him back, but because he deserves to hear it." "Okay," Sam's voice called from the backyard. "Genesis, coffee's ready." "I should go," Scarlett said. "Scarlett?" She turned back. "The shed was never about the money, was it? You could have given me $10,000 and not even noticed. This was about making sure I knew my place." She was quiet for a long moment. "Yes. Thank you for being honest." After she left, I climbed to my rooftop terrace where Sam had set up a small table with coffee and pastries from the bakery downtown. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than expected. Worse than I hoped." "That's family for you." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun climb over the mountains. From up here, I could see the whole valley, the city spreading out below us, the world full of possibilities. "Any regrets?" Sam asked. I thought about the question while I sipped my coffee, about the family relationships that might never fully heal, about the neighbours who still crossed the street when they saw me, about the cost of standing up for myself. "No," I said finally. "No regrets." My phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had shared my story on Reddit, and the comments were pouring in. Hundreds of people sharing their own stories of family betrayal, of standing up to bullies, of finding the courage to build something beautiful from the wreckage of their lives. "Look at this," I showed Sam the screen. "People are calling it inspiration." "That's because it is?" "I just built a house. You built more than that. You built a life on your own terms. A new message popped up, this one from Leo. Thank you for helping me see the truth. Your house is beautiful. You deserve every bit of happiness. I typed back, thank you for doing the right thing. The sun was fully up now, warming my face, casting light through the windows of the house I'd built with my own determination and stubbornness and refusal to accept less than I deserved. From Scarlett's deck below, I could hear the sound of boxes being loaded into a moving truck. I raised my coffee mug in a silent toast to new beginnings, to consequences finally catching up, to the sweet satisfaction of a view that was entirely my own. The house cast its shadow across their yard, just as I'd planned, but I was no longer living in anyone else's shadow, and that made all the difference.